evening, this is ET Now. You're with the India Development Debate. I'm Sandeep. Gurumurthy joining you live from our news centre in Mumbai. Joining me in Delhi is my colleague Supriya Shrinate. Straight to the big debate tonight. The big bank cleanup may have finally begun. The government today removed Allahabad Bank CEO and MD Usha Ananthasubramanian within 4 hours after the CBI named her in the first charge sheet in the 14,000 crore rupee Nirav Modi bank scam. Just to remind you, Usha was associated with PNB between 2015 and 2017, and the CBI says she violated the RBI's norms on SWIFT transactions during her stint with the PNB. Financial Affairs Secretary Rajiv Kumar said the government will take strict action against all those who are named in the charge sheet. He also said that the government nominees have been told to attend all board meetings of PSU banks without fail.
Now, Punjab National Bank on its part removed 2 executive directors whose figure in the CBI charge sheet. Remember, this is the first major crackdown in the mega bank scam that involved India's second largest public sector lender, that's PNB, and Nirav Modi. Although some mid-level executives have already been booked by the CBI. The development comes at a time when back-to-back frauds and rising bad loans are threatening to rock the very foundation of the Indian banking system. The beginning of the big bank cleanup is the big topic of discussion and debate right here on the India Development Debate tonight. Joining us on the show this evening, Shantan Hussain, former Joint Director CBI, Hemendra Hazare, market expert, and of course our consulting editor Maithili Busnurmat. So thanks very much both of you, all three of you, for joining us. And Maithili, I think it's only fair that I begin with you. 87 days after the first FIR was filed, the charge sheet has been filed now. Does this signal that the investigative agencies and the government mean business as far as the crackdown is concerned post the scam, considering how high profile it was and the kind of headline space this grabbed?
Well, we're not really sure what exactly the charges are in the charge sheet. And it clearly, if you are hitting so high as the CEO of Allahabad Bank, who was formerly MD and CEO of Punjab National Bank, one can certainly say there was some sins of omission, but these are not the same as sins of commission. And to say that, you will take such severe action against such high-ranking officials, mind you, before she gets appointed as a chairman, a very strict security clearance and vigilance clearance is done. So she was found quite kosher then, and now to take such action purely, presumably on the sins of omission rather than of commission, to me, it might seem to suggest that the CBI is perhaps barking up the wrong tree, because remember, there was an RBI circular, but to expect the chairman to be held accountable to ensure that the bank officials are following each and every circular of the Reserve Bank of India seems to be carrying it a bit too far. Nirav Modi's case, as far as the LOUs were concerned, was clearly a case of fraud by particular officials. And while it is good that you go after the guilty and punish them speedily with a cast iron case, to my mind this seems to be a bit of shooting in the dark and not really quite going after the correct people, in which case you may send a very wrong signal at a time when bank credit is already very, very low. You need to go after the guilty, but only after you are sure that they are the guilty officials.
All right. Hemendra Hazare, comment on that. Do you agree with Maithili's assessment there on the fact that this is a case of omission? Because if you look at the charge sheet, again, we don't have all the details yet, but what is shocking is the charge sheet claims that banks did nothing to strengthen their systems despite repeated warnings from RBI, despite a circular issued by the RBI after a similar scam was sort of uncovered involving a national bank in the year 2016. So in a sense, this is a colossal failure of governance.
No, it is a failure. It is a dereliction of duty. But the point is, to the best of my knowledge, at that point in time, the majority of government banks, and if I'm not mistaken, all of them had not connected the SWIFT to the core banking solution. So does that mean now all those CEOs of those banks should also be charge sheeted? See, this is the issue. While no doubt there is a problem when banks do not conform to RBI circulars, does it become a criminal act? See, these cases are there to take disciplinary action. You can't give warnings to the CEO, but when does it become a criminal act? Now, I would like to see, when you have charge sheeted a CEO of a bank, in this charge sheet, I would like to see, have they detected a money trail from the accused to the CEO? Are you seeing connivance? Now, from the press release, I don't see any of such specifics. Instead, I see that they have not complied with RBI circular, which I find is a preposterous claim. Because so many of these circulars, so many banks do not adhere to. Are you going to charge sheet all these CEOs in the banking industry? And what is the role then of the regulator? Is the regulator's role only to issue circulars? Does the regulator have no accountability? What about the government directors on the board? They are normally joint secretaries in the Ministry of Finance. Do they not have any accountability? So these are the broader questions that it raises. And I think, sad to say, they're just holding up, these PSU bank CEOs as the scapegoats in all of this.
Right. Okay. Just hold your thoughts there. I think you're giving me a cue for my next question. And Mr. Shantanu saying, the CBI sources are telling us that reconciliation of SWIFT messages in CBS was not done despite reputed circulars and caution notices of RBI. And, he did make a point to that. Is that reason enough? Now, is this a fit case for charges under Section 409 of IPC for criminal breach of trust and Section 420 for cheating? Because that's exactly the point that Hemendra Zari was raising, that is this reason enough without finding a trail of money flow or, pounds being bribed of any of that?
I broadly understand what you are trying to tell me, and let me try to be dispassionate and let me try to explain this. You see, none of us present here have either read the charge sheet or read the statements recorded under 161 CRPC. Now, these statements and the documents, other documents that the CBI has collected, have been adduced as evidence, and a charge sheet has been filed with the arrested accused. After all, the charge sheet had to be filed in the first case within 90 days, because otherwise those who had been arrested would have had to be released on statutory bail. Now, against them the charge sheet has been filed. Now, I can see the concern that CBI has gone right to the top, and it's a case of fraud 409, and the concern is very rightly said that at this stage, at this level, how can the top person be prosecuted merely on the ground that there have been disobedience of regulatory circulars? I'm sure this is not enough to sustain the charge. I rightly agree. But if we read the statements which have been recorded under Section 161 of CRPC, and if we have a look at all the documents which have been filed with the charge sheet, then probably we will come to the conclusion that there is something much more than merely violating the regulator's orders. It would be really not right for the CBI to reach out and accuse executive directors, the CMD, for being in collusion with Nirav Modi and the other fraudulent persons,
right,
without any connecting link.
Okay.
At this moment, can we really say that CBI has not found the connecting link, because we have not read the charge sheet, we have not read the documents, we have not read the statements?
Fair point. Maithili, do you buy that argument? At the end of the day, right now, none of us read the 7,000-page chart sheets. Obviously, we're all sort of, in a sense, commenting based on the little information that has been put out in the public domain by the CBI and by officials of CBI. So, is it likely, obviously, an investigative agency will not take this decision of filing a charge sheet and naming her? The government will not take this decision of stripping these individuals off their posts if there was no evidence of some sort of collusion or some sort of of criminal intent in the actions of these individuals. Do you buy that point, Maithili?
Well, I'm not so sure, because the CBI sometimes just wants to be cautious, and the government also, because you're so wary of getting criticism that you haven't acted strongly enough. Maybe they have just jumped the gun, because at the moment, as I say, to file a charge sheet against the CEO of a bank merely because, and I use the word merely because the RBI circulars, as Hemendra said, you have the RBI nominee director. What was he doing? You have the RBI inspectors. RBI sends two kinds of inspection teams, one which comes from the banking department and one from the foreign exchange department. Both these inspection teams, they found no flaw. So why has the charge sheet been filed only against two EDs of PNB, the former CEO of PNB, I find it very difficult to understand. And also the statement from Mr. Rajiv Kumar telling all bank, all government representatives must attend the board meeting of every public sector bank, whereas in the case of ICICI Bank, the government representative has been steering away, and the government makes a claim that no, until the issues are resolved, the government nominee will not attend the board meetings. So why is it that you have one rule for PSBs, another rule for private sector banks? If you have a nominee director, the idea is that he should attend and take a decision one way or the other. So what is sauce for the goose should be sauce for the gander also. Similar, in exactly the same situation in ICICI Bank, nothing is proven, but there was a clear conflict of interest. So exactly the same kind of charge that you are making of omission. There was clearly a similar omission in the case of ICICI Bank, but there the government found nothing wrong. So I find it very difficult to understand why does the government have one rule for public sector banks. Is it simply because they generally tend to be powerless, they don't turn around and bite, whereas the private sector banks are much more powerful? Is that the reason why the government has one rule for public sector banks and another for private sector banks? I really wonder. To me, it really doesn't go down well at all.
No, but Maitri, the reality also is that public sector banks are owned by the state and private sectors are not. So maybe that is one of the reasons why this is happening. But Hemendra, would like to come to you. There were 4 MDs during the period of the scam in PNB. The charge sheet obviously singles out Ms. Usha Ananthasubramanian. Do you believe this is a singling out of an individual, or do you believe that since this individual was the one who failed to act when the RBI circulars were issued, the action perhaps is justified? I mean, even though I go with your point that perhaps, we still don't have the trail of money and all of that, and this is only on account of just circulars. I get your broader point on record, but I'm just trying to ask you, because there were 4 others, is she being singled out, or is she being singled out because she ignored those circulars?
From what little we know, in my opinion, she has been singled out. Because even the new CEO has been in charge of PNB for nearly a year now. But again, in that year's time, there has been no change in the connecting the SWIFT with the CBS. Now, what about the CEOs even before, Usha Subramanian? They've also not linked it. Now, if you are going to make this argument, then you should find everybody guilty. Then you should find not only the CEOs of PNB guilty, you have to find the CEOs of practically all the government banks, because the majority of them, if not all, had not linked the SWIFT to the CBS. So this whole argument, and from what little we know, because none of us have read the charge sheet, but I'm sure if there were any specifics, highlighting their connivance, it would have been highlighted in the press release, which it has not been done. Therefore, in my view, the PSU bankers have become, the real scapegoats today for the government to direct the public's ire at.
Fair point. Shantanu Hussain, comment on that. I want you to respond to the points made by both Hemendra Zari and Maitri. And adding to that on the timing of this charge sheet, one gets the feeling that CBI was had to act, had to be seen as acting. There was a lot of political pressure on this particular case as well, given the noise around this scam. Help us understand the timing of this. Why was it critical for it to have been filed within 90 days of the FIR being filed? Put this in context.
That's a legal requirement. If you arrest a person, you have to file a charge sheet against him within 90 days, otherwise he goes on bail. CBI obviously doesn't want anybody to go on bail, those whom they have arrested. And those whom they have named in the charge sheet, they have found some evidence against them. Let me make it clear, nobody is guilty yet. Why are you using the expression guilty? Let's look at the position. If it was a case of just departmental errors, then the bank would not have filed a complaint with the CBI. Prima facie, bank thought it was a crime. And since it was a crime, the bank went with a complaint to the CBI. Now, CBI doesn't look at departmental action. CBI is a criminal investigating agency. So, CBI is investigating the case, and the bank also thought there was fraud committed. Bank also thought there was collusion of the PNB officials. CBI made arrests. CBI named the accused persons, and none of them is guilty yet. Please don't use the word guilty. They have only been charged prima facie. Next step is the court. The court will see the CBI charge sheet, and that should be done very shortly, within a month, and tell CBI that you have charged the correct persons. The court might well say that the former MD and the CEO should not have been charged. You don't have material, as Mr. Hazari and your consulting editor is saying. CBI, they may come to the same conclusion, and they may say, we do not agree that there is a charge against the CEO. We will not prosecute her, but we will prosecute those against whom you have made out a prima facie charge. It all happens all the time. Number one, complaint has been filed because the bank thought it was a criminal case. Number two, CBI has arrested persons, so CBI must file a charge sheet within 90 days to ensure they are not bailed out. Number three, CBI has named all persons they think are prima facie culpable. They are not guilty, they have not been convicted.
All right.
Now,
Mr. Sen, I agree
court,
with you.
Let us have faith on the court. Thank you.
Right. Right. Mr. Chandra, I agree with you, but I'll go across to Maithili on just this point. And Maithili, you know, a charge sheet has been filed. There is a stronger legislative cover in place with Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill. You know, Usha Ananthasubramanian will have to be removed from her position. But Nirav Modi, the perpetrator of the scam, the architect of the scam, is nowhere to be seen. Is that a very sad commentary on the current situation? I mean, you know, it's all right to ring fence and it's all right to prosecute the people who took those decisions. But the architect of the scam is missing.
Oh, absolutely. It's always in India very often the case that the really guilty escape scot-free, and you look for scapegoats and fix the responsibility on somebody perhaps who has nothing to do with it. And contrary to what Mr. Sen says, agreed, they have not been pronounced guilty as yet. But the moment you charge sheet a person, imagine what you do to his career. Would it be any possible for him, at least in the case of Usha Ananthasubramanian, she's already at the top, but look at the two executive directors, look at the kind of harassment, look at what happens to their careers. And also contrary to what Mr. Sen says, he says that the CBI does not want anybody to get bail, but the basic principle in law, one of the cardinal principles that anybody learns who does law, is that it should be bail, not jail. You need to give anybody bail unless there is a very clear proof. You have clear evidence to say that the person is going to tamper with the evidence. Now, where is the question of these people being able to tamper with the evidence? Presumably all the evidence is now with the CBI. So why do you not want to give bail? The idea should be to give the maximum number of people
bail. May I interrupt her?
Unless you know for sure that the person is going to tamper with the evidence. That is why we have so many under trials. Our prisons are full of people simply because you don't want to give them bail, and that's not the basic principle of law.
Okay, fair point. Shantanu Sen, quick, you want to interrupt, very quick interjection. I need to go to Hemendra Hazari. Very quick interjection from you, Shantanu Sen.
No, just a legal point. This is a legal point. They can get bail from the court, but if they are not sent up for the charge sheet, they will get bail from CBI. Now, CBI does not want that the arrested person should be bailed out by them. We always do that. This is the law.
I take that point.
I'm afraid.
I take that point. I take that clarification, Shantanu Sen.
Aware of the provisions.
Okay, Shantanu Sen, I take that point. Okay, let me interrupt you. I take that point. Hemendra Hazari, what do you make of these actions?
Let us not.
Okay.
No, let us not attack the CBI for refusing bail.
Okay, fair. I take that point. You know, Hemendra Hazari, what do you, like Maithili said, is this sense of going after soft targets. The man who's perpetrated the crime is nowhere to be, we don't even know where he is as a matter of fact, and that's a shame on our on all the sort of talk that we do, and the competence of our system in able to bring him back. So there's no question of, and people aren't very hopeful on the chances of him coming back at least in the terms of this government. So does it all seem like going after soft targets? Do you feel, or do you believe that these actions suggest that there is zero tolerance to white collar crime? Do you see similar, approach when it comes to a private sector bank case that has also now hogged the public limelight?
I'm very glad Maithili brought out the parallel between ICICI Bank and this particular case in PNB, because it is so stark. Here we have a CEO in name of Chanda Kochar. Her spouse is involved. She herself was also a shareholder in Credential Finance. And yet the CBI has not even questioned her. So, and yet she resists even stepping down to have an external agency. The government director on the board of ICICI Bank refuses to attend the board meetings, and they openly say that he will not attend the board meetings until the investigative agencies have come to some conclusion. And in the other case, on a charge sheet where as of this moment we don't know any specifics in the collusion between the CEOs and the executive directors with the accused, they are being charge sheeted. Their careers are practically over now. There's a huge social stigma on them. The government has stripped them of all their powers. So, and in the eyes of the public, when you see such things, they are guilty. And this is where I find the great shame that a PSU culture, in a PSU bank, the government takes all types of stringent action, where as of this moment there are no specific charges that we know of or any specific money trail. And in the case of ICICI Bank, which is such a big prominent private sector bank, the government refuses to do anything, even though it has a director on board. The regulator does not do anything. And of course, the boards in most of these private sector banks, they just do what the CEO tells them to do. So this is a very sad and pathetic situation today, that the really guilty parties are allowed to leave this country in style and lead a luxurious lifestyle abroad, while those are caught are quite, in my view, at best you can say that there's some dereliction of duty.
Okay. Maithili, very quickly wanted to come in on that. The charge sheet, the subsequent commentary from the government, this whole, the whole exit of Usha Ananthasubramanian, 2 executive directors. Does this, despite whatever, does this also signal that the government is willing to take tough decisions when required as far as the bank cleanup is concerned? Does this signal towards the bank cleanup? And very quickly, will this also be a cue for ICICI Bank's chief to act?
Well, I don't know whether the government, it's all very well to act tough, but you must act tough against the right people and be tough where it's warranted. When you act tough in one situation and act very soft and namby-pamby in the other, then questions will be asked that why are you behaving in this fashion? The law should be the same, and government should not play favorites one against the other. So I'm afraid you have to be tough, but against the right people.
Okay. On that note, completely timed out, I want to thank Shantanu Sen and Hemendra Hazari for joining us in the first leg of the India development debate. Important to see, is this how significant this is in the larger context of a reshuffle, or are we just going after soft targets in an election year? Maithili, would urge you to stay with us as breaking news that we're going to address on the other side of the break. There's been a mini reshuffle of sorts with Piyush Goyal taking charge of the finance ministry, Smriti Irani being relieved of the charge of the INB ministry, Ravi Shankar Prasad loses IT ministry. Significant changes. We're going to address them and the implications of that in just a moment. Do stay with us on the India development debate right here on ET Now.